Hey guys, it's Kay from KS Anonymous, and I am back today with another episode of r/Legal Advice. I found out I had a child when CPS contacted me because her mother was losing custody. Now what? Maryland. Sorry for the crappy title. To make a long story short, I was a junkie and as a result did a lot of dumb and questionable things. I have been clean for 11 years now. About a week and a half ago, I was contacted by CPS, who asked if I knew Mary Smith, a woman with whom I had a relationship when I was on drugs. I said yes and was informed that she had a child, Emma last name, who had been taken from the home, and I was named as her father. With no other contactable family, she could come to me or otherwise go to foster care. It was relayed to me that I was listed as the child's father on her legal documents as well. To cut out some BS from the middle here, I'll just skip to the fact that I did accept emergency custody of the child, and I do actually pretty strongly believe that I'm probably her biological father for a number of reasons, but I feel like at this point the caseworkers have been unhelpful and are basically like, for all intents and purposes, you're her legal father, bye! And not answering my questions. Emma apparently knew I existed and was told through her life that I was her father, but her mother said she had no way of contacting me, which I guess is technically true. My questions. How was I listed on the birth certificate, legal records, school records, etc., and literally never informed ever at any point? How is this possible? 2. The caseworker said that because I'm on the birth certificate, and the undertone here was unless you have an identical twin somewhere that is 100% your child, there's no need to take a DNA test. Is there any benefit to doing so? Number 3, this one I may have to consult with a lawyer on, but if I'm her father, then am I entitled to child support or the foster care stipend? That sounds terrible, but I don't make a lot of money and I'm stressed because there's times I feel like I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough for myself even working full-time, and I need to be able to provide for a kid now too. It's not about the money, but it's a little bit about the money. See if you can apply for TANF in your state, maybe Medicaid for your daughter, SNAP benefits. You aren't a foster care provider, you'd need to take all the classes, and even then you're a parent, you can't do foster care for your own kid. See if you can do Section 8 or CCAP assistance. There's a lot of programs out there. It actually wouldn't hurt to get a foster license anyway, because he might qualify for assistance through CPS. Plus, you learn a lot more about what kids go through. Yes, get a DNA test. You're on the birth certificate because mom listed you as a father. Child support, maybe, but if mom has no job or money, it's semi-pointless. Blood from a stone and all that. DNA test, now. I will go after child support in the event that mom gets her life straightened out or comes into some money someday, tax refund, whatever. In that case, income can be garnished for back support, no? Yes, sign up for child support, even if it arrives so late that it can be used to buy gifts for grandchildren. Don't forget that if in the event she gets an inheritance, you can claim that on back child support, even if she never pays. At least that's how it is in Texas, where I have my child support filed YMMV. Read DNA. Legally, that's unlikely to ever be important unless you want to walk away, and that only works if the results are what you want. Brother-in-law had that crisis, and ultimately knowing what would happen to an innocent child if the results were not the father, and the chances were pretty fair that he was anyway, made him decide to just not open that can of worms. You gotta decide for yourself how important that question is, and it sounds to me like you're reasonably assured the results won't be a free pass on fatherhood. Which wasn't your question anyway. Start with the Medicaid SNAP services others are recommending. Even if you don't get much actual aid from them directly, you'll likely get at least enough to be worth your while. There are humans who do this kind of thing a lot and probably have good answers, or at least experienced thoughts to who, what, where do you recommend I do or contact next. In contrast, you're not getting answers from CPS for that same reason. Their job is getting your child into the hands of an adult who can advocate for her. It's someone else's job to help you do that. You just have to find those people. Don't let it throw you. The system barely works as it is. Imagine if there weren't clearly defined assigned duties, you know? Most importantly, you're about to drink from a fire hose. Just remember, none of us knows what we're doing. We're all winging it. Some of us just have the advantage of getting our bluff in early. If you haven't got a good support system, start building it. First thing I do, personally, is find someone to mother you or grandmother her if your own mother isn't available or appropriate. No hate, the world is not changing fast enough, and older women are still the repositories of knowledge for this. You got this. Congrats on fatherhood, dude. First, don't ever feel guilty or weird about looking into support money. Kids are expensive, and they are able to thrive when you're not trying to figure out how to pay the bills or put food on the table. You are now the custodial parent. Look into whatever support and benefits you qualify for so you have less to stress about. Second, in addition to a DNA test, get a copy of that birth certificate. Maryland requires that an unmarried partner must complete an affidavit of parentage before his name can be put on the birth certificate. It's a signed, notarized document. Without it, your name should not have been added. If it's on there, it was done so fraudulently, and that would have been very hard to do unless she found someone with your same name. If it's not, it's possible the social worker asked this woman who the girl's father is and bluffed to you in an attempt to keep her out of the foster care system. I'm not saying this is what happened, but if you didn't put yourself on the birth certificate, you shouldn't be on it. The claim that you are is suspicious. I just want to add that you can sign this at any time during her first 18 years. It's not just something done at the hospital when the baby is born. This probably doesn't apply since you hadn't seen her, but I just wanted to toss it in. But she is right about how legal parentage works. The names on the birth certificate are the legal parents regardless of DNA. If by some weird chance you did provide an affidavit of parentage and just don't remember, and then find out she's not biologically yours, it doesn't matter. It's documentation where you accept the legal responsibility of being the parent. Having been through the affidavit of parentage process myself, I will say that it's highly unlikely you'd forget about it. Good on you for taking her in. It's hard for sure, but she's lucky to have you there. I hope things work out well for you both. Edit for clarification. Do you have an official copy of the birth certificate? In theory, unless you two were married, you would have had to sign a voluntary admission of parenthood or been informed of court proceedings to be on the birth certificate. In addition, as others have pointed out, if the mother ever applied for state assistance, they should have applied to you for child support. Given that none of these things happened, I would worry that while you were informally named on school and legal records, you may not actually be on the birth certificate. You can get an official copy from the records in the location she was born. Take a DNA test to be 200% sure it's your child, as if it isn't, you have some legal mess to clean up. If the child is in fact yours, be aware that if you should try to go for full custody, if that's what you want, as a mother, if she isn't dumber than a rock, could turn around and ask you for 11 years of child support. That's if she's smart enough to do this, or may not, just a possibility. As well as be prepared to do some fast learning as a new dad. I thought you could only ask for child support from the date you filed for it, so if she only files for it now, he wouldn't owe anything from the past 11 years. This is very much state dependent. To answer your first question, you would not be on the birth certificate if you didn't sign it. Plain and simple. I work with a government agency that establishes paternity for child support. If you didn't sign, you would be given a court date to get paternity established through genetic testing, DNA test. If you are deemed her father, they can seek child support from you. However, we don't just come up with some outrageous number that you cannot afford. Child support is set based on both of your incomes, bio mom and bio dad, even if the child is in the state's custody. We take your incomes and follow a federal guideline that lines up with children per order and both of your incomes combined. Now, if we receive a referral from CPS, sometimes they do place the child in foster care, and you may have to pay a small stipend fee as well. In my state, it's around $70 per month. Also, when we are setting the obligation amount, we do take into consideration the age of the child. If the child is under 5, I'm assuming not your case, we set the mother's actual income. For example, if the mother isn't working, we would set her at 0. However, if the child is over 5, we would set it at minimum wage if she isn't working. Same with you, if you weren't working, we would set it at minimum wage. There's a lot of things here. If I were you, I would speak to some sort of legal counsel. We always give the free legal aid phone number at our office if our clients can't afford to hire an attorney. Ask the caseworker if this is something she can do during your next call. I didn't sign the birth certificate. I wasn't even in the state when she was born, and I can prove that pretty easily. Could someone else have signed it as me? That sounds ridiculous, but I'm not putting it past Junkie Innovation. No one could have signed it for you, but I suppose they could have listed you as the father. Still, you have to be DNA tested. The state cannot just court-order child support on you if you are DNA tested and are deemed not the father. It gets messy when folks do the DNA test and then are deemed the natural father of so-and-so. Then they don't appear to the court date. It gets established at that court date whether you appear or not, because the genetic testing was positive. Like I said, stay in touch with your caseworker, ask for genetic testing. Seriously, do not stand idle to this. You don't have to answer this, but what state are you in? Also, is the mother in the same state as you are? I wouldn't say for certain no one could sign as him. When my 2 were born, we filled paperwork out in my hospital room. I signed, Dad signed, and then they came and got the paperwork. No one ever checked ID for their dad, and since we were alone in the room, I very easily could have forged their dad's signature or had a male friend do it. 2 times this. In my state, my wife gave birth at the biggest university hospital in the biggest city. We filled out the paperwork ourselves for the birth certificate, naming the parents. Then I asked a nurse, "Who do I give this to?" and was told, "Oh, the records person isn't here. Just slide it under the locked door at room 222. They'll get it." And that's how I established legal paternity. It's been almost 3 months now, and I thought I'd come in real quick to give an update. Overall, the kid and I are doing great. I really expected the adjustment period to suck, but I feel like maybe this poor kid really needed some structure and stability, and totally glommed onto that. I try to just give her as much of my love, patience, structure, and stability that I have to give. I've been learning a lot about attachment, trauma, and everything. It's been overwhelming, but every night, no matter how exhausted I am, I get into bed and I thank God for her. I wouldn't trade her for anything in this world. I tell her every night she's my favorite thing. Legally, things are kind of boring. I did the DNA test, unsurprisingly got the result that she is mine biologically. The emergency order is still in place. Her mom is still in jail. She was offered the option of going to rehab and refused. She'll be in jail for at least a few more months, and after she's out, we will make a parenting plan for visits with help from the social worker. Realistically, I think she'll die before she gets clean. That sounds like a horrible thing to say, but it is how it is. It's been a wild ride. It's not easy, but it's joyful, and it's really changed my life and made me want to be better in a lot of ways. So quite the wild ride here, for sure. Suddenly finding out you have a child and they need to be placed with you in an emergency situation, that had to be quite quite crazy to go through. But I am really glad to find out that, it wasn't just kind of a trick, if that makes sense, that is his child, and that they're apparently getting along really well. Obviously that has to be really traumatizing for his daughter to, be raised by basically a single mom who is addicted to drugs and going to jail and wants jail over rehab. That's really rough. And I really hope that, I don't know, by some miracle that mom will get clean. I don't, obviously it's a hard situation, but I hope the best for them. I hope that everything gets worked out properly, and hopefully they can, have a good structure for the girl. And I'm just really glad that she has family to be with instead of being just kind of pushed through the foster care system while her mom is in jail and all of that. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if it's likely that it was possible to forge his name and all of that on the birth certificate. I'm not super familiar with that kind of thing, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Really quickly, I would like to thank my patrons. Up on the screen, you should see my face palmers and my crazy case. Thank you all so much for supporting me in that way. If you are interested in becoming a patron, checking out the stories that we mentioned in today's video, or possibly sending me an email for possible inclusion in a future video, all of that information is in the description box, so be sure to check it out. And I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!